Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1274, written by Mgnolry. The Whiskered Guardian Angel. A random cat on the street once protected me from a man who I didn't realize was following me. I was, stupidly, talking on my phone while walking home at night. I saw a man who was talking to himself near a park, and I deliberately chose to walk down another street to avoid him. In the middle of my phone conversation, this orange cat comes up beside me and starts walking next to me. We walked in tandem for about 3 blocks, me telling the person I was talking to how funny this was. Suddenly, the cat starts to turn around and head back the other way. I look and see that same man I'd seen earlier, who had changed his original direction and had been following me for a few blocks. The cat got in between us and howled at him until he turned around and went another way. Then the cat and I walked another block together, at which point he peeled off into a yard. I double-checked, and the man had disappeared. I can't be sure that the man wished me harm, but I know I wouldn't have noticed him if it weren't for the cat. I never believed in guardian angels or anything of that sort until I had that experience. Case notes for file 1274, The Whiskered Guardian Angel. So a couple instances this week of guardian angels either possessing or taking the form of animals to ward off potential dangers. Here's a question to ponder on. Do guardian angels have access to future buffered knowledge? So do they know what would happen if they don't intervene, or do they just have to wing it? See what I did there? No, but really. Maybe they don't have foresight. Maybe they just have to judge situations case by case and use their best judgment. And also use whatever is available in the area. No other humans to possess, so an animal will have to do in a pinch. And if you ever been on the receiving end of a cat gone wild, let me tell you, I'd rather fight a human. Cats have built-in weapons. Creepy file number 116, written by Sam4WX, The Cab Driver's Dark Link. I went to the University of Virginia at the same time that Morgan Harrington disappeared, which was my second year there, aka sophomore year. Sadly to say, because she wasn't a student, she was in town for a Metallica concert. Her death was salacious, but it didn't really strike fear into the student body like it did when Hannah Graham would go missing 5 years later. But I'm getting ahead of myself. About a week or so after Morgan's death in 2009, me and my guy friend were at a grocery store right outside of campus getting snacks around 10 p.m. Bus service had ended, so we decided to make use of a cab service that the university had set up to make sure students had access to rides in case they were drunk or just needed transpo. The university pays the bill up front and charges you later. So we get into this guy's cab and he immediately starts bringing up Morgan's disappearance. This wasn't so strange because everyone was talking about it. It was national news. But I'm an introvert with a good memory, so I remember just about every conversation over 3 minutes long I've ever had, especially with strangers. He starts talking about police theories about the case, and my friend, who went on to get a master's in gothic horror, starts talking about how some people thought a cult was involved. Basic speculative nonsense. In addition to that, I remember the guy looking at me through the rearview mirror. I won't say I never forget a face, but this conversation was so macabre that it stuck with me even years later. Anyway, he dropped us off and we made it home safe. Fast forward 5 years. I'm in grad school 1,000 miles away, and Hannah's disappearance is national news. Fortunately in this case, they have video surveillance. You can see her walking away with a big African-American guy with dreadlocks. They get an ID and his face is on the news everywhere. I don't recognize him. They eventually catch this guy in Texas, just an hour or so away from where I was in school at the time. As days go by, they're profiling this guy, and his DNA matches samples found on Morgan's remains, found 3 months after her disappearance in 2009. A picture comes up on the screen of what he looked like 5 years before, and my heart stops. There are no dreadlocks. His hair is clean cut, he's about 40 pounds lighter, and his beard is short. He is, I'm 97% certain, the same man who drove us home that night. He lured both Morgan and Hannah with his cab. Every now and then I think, what would have happened if I hadn't have been with my male friend that night? I'm pretty sure it was his idea to go out so late, but still. Or what if he had been a girl? Case notes for the creepy file number 116. Cab driver's dark link. Ah yes, blending in as a cab driver is not too uncommon a strategy for serial killers and other nefarious folk. No one thinks about the cab driver, or I guess Uber drivers these days. And now I'm thinking about the BBC Sherlock show, the first episode, where Sherlock is led into the cab because that's the villain of the first act. At least you weren't involved in some daring game of Russian pills where you have to guess which one is poison and which one isn't, and he always wins. Don't like that. What concerns me is how adept some are lying, though. Deception, blending in as normal people when under the mask. They're human monsters, but only inside. Always be on the lookout for signs. It's typical of serial killers to enjoy discussing their own crimes, their own cases. It gives them a sense of primal power as much as the act itself. And be advised that the more charming someone is, it's not necessarily that the more charming they are, the more likely they are a serial killer, but it does play in very well for it, because if someone is charming and very attractive with the halo effect, you lower your guard. So don't lower your guard, especially with someone you don't know. I mean, after months of knowing someone, sure, but not at first glance. If you meet someone attractive, don't just get into their car because they're attractive. You don't want to end up in a bathtub full of ice or in, 6 feet below the ground. Bonus file, written by the old guy from Up. Spine-Tingling footsteps in the night. When I was in 3rd grade, I moved to a new town and into a new house. We lived in a camper in the backyard of the house while we renovated it. It was a pretty old house. Anyway, during renovation, we found all sorts of stuff in the walls. Old bottles, old glasses, letters, old newspapers, old pictures of children in school clothes. It was a 2-story house, and the stairs were kind of a focal point for all sorts of creepy stuff. So once you got to the top of the stairs, there was a little landing before it went into 2 bedrooms. At night, we would always leave the light on in the landing in case we had to get up to use the bathroom. Me and one brother shared a room, and the other room was for our older brother. I refused to sleep upstairs due to how creeped out I was, so I always slept downstairs on the couch. One weekend, my sister, who is older than both my brothers, came to visit and was in my oldest brother's bedroom alone, as we were all at school and my mom was at work. As she was sitting up there watching TV, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs and called out, as she had thought my mom was home early from work. No response other than the footsteps turning around and heading back down the stairs. When she got up to look, there was no one home and all doors locked. It doesn't stop there. My oldest brother was left home alone for a week, while me and my other brother and mom and dad went on a week-long vacation. Naturally, he had his girlfriend over for a couple nights to keep him company. One night, she got up to pee at around 3 a.m. and went downstairs to the bathroom where she said she heard children whispering. A couple nights later, around 3 to 4 a.m., his girlfriend woke up my brother saying someone was in the house. They heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Since the light was on in the landing, they could see a shadow underneath the door like someone was standing there, and the doorknob began to shake. Luckily, it was locked. They both started to freak out and my brother jumped out of bed. We had some of those dumb display samurai type swords that aren't even sharp, and he grabbed one of those and went towards the door. They heard more footsteps running down the stairs, and he bravely or stupidly followed down the stairs where he was met with an empty house. All windows and doors were closed and locked. He called the police, but nothing came of it. Case notes for the bonus file. Spine-tingling footsteps in the night. Squatters living in the walls? Yeah, that always creeped me out as a possibility. But examining the evidence you listed, old bottles, old photos of children in school clothes, doesn't sound like the items that homeless, disheveled people down on their luck or worse would be bringing into a home, especially the pictures. But then the doorknob shaking suggests it was flesh and blood human, or at least a corporeal being, not a spirit. A monster hiding in the walls would be even worse, but honestly, it could be anything. Whatever it was, though, it sounds like it fled after that night. But I'd never be able to sleep in there again, would you? Especially because everything is locked. So if someone was inside and fled, they had to manage to lock it from the outside, so they had to have a key as well. And now time for the quote of the day. The fact that a great many people believe something is no guarantee of its truth. W. Somerset Maugham. So you have the classic example of Einstein saying to a group of scientists, 100 scientists, why 100? If I'm wrong, one would suffice. And so, if a lot of people believe something, maybe the odds are placed higher on it being correct, but maybe not by as much as most think. Common knowledge or common wisdom, what is accepted by everyone, may not necessarily be true. It doesn't mean it's false, too, so don't go into the other side where any knowledge that is widely believed is wrong. No. It's just that it may be wrong, and you shouldn't be against questioning things just because a lot of people believe them. That's what I would say. So always have an open mind and try to examine facts as objectively as possible. Not an easy thing to do. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.